By the way, did you hear that Russ's his storage unit got broken into?
No.
Yeah, dude, they stole a whole bunch of camping gear from him
Oh.
and left all of his miniatures.
They're like, are we going to need these on the camping trip? I don't
It's
think
like,
so.
dude,
Wow.
just leave a note that's like nerd. So he was like, yeah, he's like they didn't take any of my miniatures, and I was like, oh. He's like, I mean, they were all painted, and I'm like, I don't know that would make a difference, but okay.
Yeah. They would have looked at him and been like, huh.
Well, yeah, like they looked
Let's
at
take the tent.
Yeah, it's just open up his like those boxes, and they're like, what's in here? Guns?
Yeah.
Something really badass? Some sort of electronic? What the fuck?
Dolls?
Yeah, or some other guy who's like, oh my god, these miniatures. Is this like all boxes of them? Are they all painted? Well, no, I don't want them now. I mean, what am I going to do with them? I can't paint them.
Are they assembled and painted? Well, that just takes the joy out of it, doesn't it?
I can't put them together.
I can't put them together.
God. I thought I had 6 months worth of a hobby to follow here.
I could have done some modeling.
Welcome to the Save vs. Poison podcast, the podcast dedicated to gaming, general geekery, and enduring sobriety in an ever-maddening society, with your host, Will, and two guys that probably live under his stairs. If you're an addict, know an addict, or are just interested in exploring the outer mysteries of geekery, you're in the right place. Without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's season 4, episode 8, and that was one of my co-hosts futzing around with his microphone in the background while I'm introducing the show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You son of a bitch.
Steve.
I have one job to do on the show.
I mean, it's usually me. It
is usually you, and it wasn't. I can see the levels, Ticky. I can see them.
That's a lie.
It's not a lie. I can see them as clearly as I can see the sexual picture of Joe Rogan riding a hot dog.
It is lacking mayonnaise.
It is lacking mayonnaise, but I'm sure that you'll be able to add some to the the proceedings.
It is an aggressive picture, though.
It is an aggressive picture. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Will. I am your host. Joining me tonight, he recently has taken to wearing a onesie covered in obese cats eating cheeseburgers in public. He says it's because expectation management is so important, and he's tired of people not giving him the respect he deserves. He's our friend Steve. Hey, Steve.
Hey, are we saying that onesies are not an acceptable fashion choice?
The onesie is fine. The cheeseburger eating cats, that, however, that's questionable.
Are you kink shaming the cats?
That's not a kink. That's not a kink.
You don't know. You can't
really?
see a boner.
That's not a
Seriously? Now you're going to tell somebody it's not a kink?
That spiky evil boner. No, I'm not gonna shame the cat unless they're here. If I kink shame, it's to your face or your disembodied voice across the internet.
Yep, there we go.
Something about hot dogs. Something about
so
hot dogs.
when we say, are we okay? So really quick, when we say onesie, is that like the pro wrestler onesie thingy, spandex thing?
It's
like
not
it's
not spandex, but it's pretty close. It's like a romper kind of a thing.
It's a romper.
Yeah, it's a romper.
It's a man romper.
My friend Steve wears rompers with cats and cheeseburgers on them. It's a really ridiculous outfit, and every single time I see him in it, I'm like, you know what? This makes sense. This all makes
defense, there's
sense.
Reasons.
No, there are reasons, but I don't. Honest to God, no. I think you saw this on Amazon like 4 years before I ever proposed or talked to you about the project, and you were like, you know what? Someday this is going to bear fruit.
One day I will find some way to wear this that is socially acceptable,
and it will be normalized for me. Moo ha ha ha, cheeseburger cat. Also joining us tonight, in an effort to flirt with the buxom and comely librarian at his local library, he asked, "Do you have a section on human sexuality?" She responded that, of course they did. He is currently on Chapter 4 of Oral for Dummies, but the book is 3 weeks overdue. He's our good friend, Ticky. Hey, Ticky.
Yeah, at least I'm trying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Keep improving. Keep improving, kids.
That old community college try.
Yep.
It's the type of book that you find on the island of misfit learners, or what I like to call community college. And I've been to several semesters of community college, and I have nothing to show for it.
Several semesters.
Several semesters of I'm not kidding. Like over my life, I've stopped and started community college like I don't know 3 times, something like that. Yeah,
I have driven by a community college
I
at
have.
least 3 times.
I have once put my gum on the bench at a community college.
I really think that Arapahoe Community College looks like a prison.
It does look like a prison. It looks like a fucking fortress.
Yep.
Like I honest to God think that if high school of the dead were to happen, I think we go to that community college and board it up. That is a defensible position.
Yeah, it truly is.
You know, a couple machine gun nests on top. Yep, 100%, guys. 100%.
It's got those balconies. It's got those kind of like, anyway, neither here nor there. It's formidable. Let's just leave it at that.
It is formidable. Speaking of things that are formidable, Steve, you had some thoughts about some of the content from last week's show and a picture on our Discord server.
Yes. And that fantastic picture of Joe Rogan forcefully riding a hot dog? What is
Forcefully riding that. Like, he is wrestling that hot dog. That it looks like a jet-propelled hot dog, too.
It does look like
it's a jet-propelled hot dog. That's what that is.
No, all right. So 2 things. One, I was listening to last week's episode, and some things struck me.
Sure.
First,
Yeah.
This goes the picture. When I immediately saw it, my first thought was that Tiki has a need to make this hot dog even.
Because one side does look a little longer than the other.
One side's a little longer than the other.
Yeah, but I'm not going to eat that hot dog. It's been in Joe Rogan's crotch. I'm not
I
going to.
just assumed that all hot dogs you were like, I have to even this out.
It's very specific to when I go to, like right now that one looks more like a rocket that just happens to be shaped like a hot dog, or even like a big penis.
That would be the most
Or an
fucked up
average-sized
version
penis.
of OCD I'd ever heard of.
Yeah, like I gotta chump that thing down a little bit. That's not right. No, I mean
a couple bites. Just a few
no,
bites.
because like
we'll
that
just
one.
get it a little even there on your Rogan.
Okay,
Little
so
nibble.
so
Little
the
nibble.
physics of that one actually, you know that it's because the rocket's coming out the back. That's where it's pushing up from. He's going to be sitting further back on that as the nose tilts upward. It's all physics and rocket science and shit, dude. Like I don't want to eat like that. To me, isn't really a hot dog at that point. It's like a meat propelled rocket.
That looks like a delicious meat propelled rocket.
It does.
2.
Honestly, it's either that or we Photoshop you into the picture with you holding Joe Rogan from behind, riding the hot dog rocket with him.
Without a shirt like Seth Rogen on that
Definitely.
motorcycle commercial.
Oh,
No,
God, yeah.
no, just like Patrick Swayze in Ghost.
that I was gonna say romper, but yeah, let's do yours.
Would you also have an angry face? Would
I
you
don't
be
know.
making the same Joe Rogan face, just so intense?
No, mine wouldn't be intense. Mine would be like trying to calm him down, like shh.
I feel like no. I
It's
think yours would be
okay.
triumphant. I think yours would be like a face of a man who finally got what he wanted.
That could work too.
All right.
So, okay, 2. Yeah, go ahead.
Second thought that I had listening to the episode.
Do it.
I love the implication when we started kink shaming you for your hot dog kink that
It's
you
not
have
a
to
kink.
that one has to specify whether or not they have a boner with any food they eat, so that it's not perceived as a kink. Just that, like I said,
I ate a
that
pie
implication.
today. I did not have a boner.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude.
When I had the chicken thighs I had earlier, there was no boner.
There was no boner. It's a disclaimer.
It's not a kink.
Do you want to go to McDonald's and not get boners?
I love it. Like
Well,
that
that's a boner-free trip, right?
Oh,
that's
that's-
a boner-free trip to McDonald's.
Unless you're Danny and it's got a play place.
Oh, that is. Oh, well, that is where he met his girlfriend.
That's
so.
where he met. That's where he met her. Yep, 100%. Something about the ball pit.
So there you go.
Those are good.
Now,
Those
yeah.
are good.
Yeah,
Good show notes.
yeah.
Good show notes. I have a show note as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a show note as well. I couldn't let your joke, your bringing up the topic of conversation. I don't remember if we actually included in the show the pre-ramble part where we talk about the man who got his balls stuck in the plastic chair. I think we did,
Oh.
right?
Yeah,
That was in the show. Yeah. I looked up that photograph. They took multiple photographs. There's like a storyline on Google. This is glorious. Here's him laying in a
Different angles.
totally different angles. Here's him. He's laying on a gurney with the chair still wrapped around. Here's one where the paramedics are trying to cut the plastic around his balls. I think that might actually be a different chair and a different man's balls, which tells me something about
It's happened more than once.
It's happened more than once.
Oh my god! Oh,
I like to think that the first guy did it, and then the second guy was like, "How does that happen?" And then
here's
Yeah.
one where they cover the guy. They cover the guy with one of the EMT's jackets, but his balls are still. His balls are still showing through the chair. It's like, of all the things that you're gonna fucking cover up, you're like, no, let's make sure that his identity is preserved, but let's make sure the balls are showing. This is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I feel like there should be a museum with these photographs. You know what? I need to start downloading all these because I'm sure the internet's gonna say this can't last forever. It's too good. It's too awesome. Now, I don't know who this guy is. There's no name. There's just man gets balls stuck in plastic chair. That's the that's
I don't know if
the
you want to be
caption.
Googling that very often, though.
Do you need it more than once in your
You're
life?
gonna end up on a list.
Do you need it more than once ever in your? Yeah, you're gonna end up on
Kind of a-
like the
kind of a
FBI is
list.
like, listen. We know that you've been tapping into our system, and we know that you know one of our torture methods. Okay, we have gotten so much valuable information out of this. Please don't alert Amnesty International. It's not okay.
Yeah,
It's not okay.
I don't know. It seems like it'd be a not the FBI that's going to come after you. It's going to be like it's just that if you keep searching for it, Google, it picks up on what you're doing, and it's like, hey, what
It's
you're
gonna
really
offer you
into.
lawn chairs.
Like next thing you know, it's going to be like it's like did you mean balls caught in lawn chair with hot dog? Like,
There's like a
and then you're
picture
like, I
of
don't have
Joe Rogan in a lawn chair riding that hot dog.
You gotta get
like
some
an EMT's jacket over his head.
Yeah.
weirdly targeted.
Don't worry,
ads.
Mr. Rogan, you're anonymous now.
Oh, that is some good. That is wholesome family entertainment. Folks.
Yeah, like well, that was
Wholesome family entertainment.
It's weird because when you asked me, I had a couple of people like, "Was that real?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't do like a whole lot of research. I just ran across it and thought this is fucking hilarious. Will is gonna get a kick out of some guy having his balls caught in a lawn chair." And then like you couldn't view it. Nobody like Steve didn't view it, and we went to this like kind of like urban myth kind of thing for
Like,
for
did
a
it
week
happen?
or so.
Did it not happen? Is Tiki
Like,
just lying to us?
Yeah, he's trying to throw us off of that hot dog kink he's got or whatever.
He was like, "You guys remember the chair?" After we start talking about the hot dog thing, yeah.
Remember the guy with his? Yeah, at least I didn't get my balls caught in a chair. Hot dogs are cool.
I like that you tried to that you were going to use that as a psyop opportunity. I like
That
you
was I
wanted
was going
to.
to try to, but no, that's actually amazing. I actually didn't realize. One, I didn't realize it was a bit of an epidemic. I just don't understand that part.
I just like.
How does this keep happening?
All I can think, right now, all I can think is that someday I'm going to be at a picnic and my wife's going to be like, "Baby, sit down," and I'm going to look at her and be like, "Which 3-letter agency do you work for, you son of a bitch? Which one is it? What do you want out of me? I'll tell you anything."
That you were gonna be like, she was gonna come up to you. You were already sitting in the chair, and she's like, "Let's go," and you're gonna be like, "I can't.
Yeah.
I can't."
No,
I
we're going to be here a while.
I
We're going to be
slipped
here a
out.
while.
a little bit.
Get the tin snips, but be careful.
Don't ask me how it happened. Just get the damn Tim Sips.
It's a warm day, all right? I was feeling very loose, and when I'm loose, plop, plop, fizz, fizz.
You bought me these shorts, woman. Yeah.
You bought me.
blame her for
It's
it.
her fault.
Quit shopping at Marshall's. That's what you get for buying a TJ Maxx. How dare you? That's so good. It's so good.
still just. It hurts like across my chest. I was laughing so hard.
It's like the Minecraft of jokes. You could just keep doing it over and over. It's an endless supply of possible humor. I love it.
It really is.
I fucking love it. Speaking of an endless supply of possible humor, my name's Will. I'm an alcoholic.
My name is Tiki, and I'm an alcoholic.
My name's Steve. I'm not an alcoholic, but I've also never got my balls stuck in a lawn chair.
I like that you kept it within the realm of the impossible. Fuck you haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you. The upward lilt on the end there. Yeah, you really not thanking me, are you? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. That was not going to psyop us. No, we're
No. I felt like we've gone a little long on the first part, so I was like,
well, I didn't even get to ask you guys how you are. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We laughed.
Nope.
Exactly. That's why I was like, all
I
right,
feel
we
really
went a
good
little-
now.
I can't. Could you imagine like laughing at anybody else? Like if a woman got her titty stuck in a plastic, like the back of a plastic
I'd
chair,
Still laugh. At
or
that.
like, yeah, I would probably laugh at that too. Like,
I would laugh.
like her
Yeah.
labia got stuck down there.
like if she was like tanning her back and like it just popped
Yeah,
through and then
just
she couldn't get out.
Oh God, that is like sunburn waiting to happen.
Yep. It just looked
Some
like
weird tan lines at
it
least.
just popped through like an orange on in a sock. It was really
Just
weird.
like her entire back is like sunburned and her front is still pale, and you're like, what happened to you?
She's walking around the pool deck with like a chaise lounge chair like in front of her. She's like, "Somebody help!
Get
Don't
the
ask
tin
me.
snips.
It went through.
Don't ask me how it happened. Just get the damn tin snips.
Just get the 10 snips." That's pretty funny. I don't know. That's my wife has told me that's basically what happens when you get a mammogram. So maybe it's not so not so foreign. Maybe not so foreign. Anyways, we'll have pictures of that up on the Discord, and I'll probably repost these to Twitter because they're pretty fucking glorious, these pictures.
They really, truly are. Yeah.
All right. So alcohol related news. I since last week. The biggest thing that happened with like addiction stuff was my sister-in-law's on Valium because of back problems. No big deal. It's in the house. We talked about the opiates being in the house, which is, I've had opiates before and I liked opiates, so that was one where I was like, you know what, really make sure that you hide this and don't tell me where it is, and and that's fine. And I haven't been tempted to go look for them. I haven't looked for them. They've basically just been here, and I've, for the most part, forgotten about them. But like last night, because of the fact that I don't have like a really good workbench, and I was working on epoxying the wood for a shelf that I'm installing on down in the basement with the finishing of the basement build that we're doing. So I did that. I don't have a good place to work on that kind of thing though. So I was basically bent over at the waist for like 2 hours trying to get this epoxy to do the stuff that I wanted it to do. And I'm sure that, the guys on YouTube who make it fucking look so easy don't have back problems, but I'm not there yet. I've only worked with the epoxy like 2 or 3 times. Don't have a good spot for it, bent over at the waist, back hurts like hell for most of the night last night. And I was like, man, I really wish that I could take some over the counters and maybe one of those Valiums. And my wife perked up at that, and she was like, really? You think that that's something that'd be like a good idea? And I was like, I've never had Valium that I know of. I don't know that it's gonna do the same kind of stuff, but even if I was prescribed that kind of thing, she'd be the one in charge of doling it out to me in its appropriate amounts anyways. So like I wasn't worried about the possibility of having any kind of relapse when it came to that. Like it wasn't even a concern. I didn't think about it. It was just no, my wife would be the one in control of it. She would as a nurse would make sure that she and the physician spoke, and that the whatever dosage that I was getting of any kind of controlled substance would be something that was appropriate, not only hopefully for my pain level, but also for the amount of prescribed medication that I was given by hopefully a physician that, one of the things that I would talk about really, really early on with whoever was prescribing that stuff to me would be, hey, I'm an addict. I like pills. I don't want to relapse, low doses or small amounts or no no refills on the pills, that kind of thing. So but that was it. That came up, and I had what I thought was a really kind of normal thought about the use of a controlled substance for a very specific reason, and then in the follow-up conversation just being like, yeah, but you'd be in control of it, so I'm not terribly worried. So that's me for this week. Tiki, what do you got?
I don't, nothing quite that dramatic. I had a, just so much drama. No hot dog related incidents.
Good.
Didn't even have a damned hot dog. Although I did run into, like I said, I ran into one of our old friends, and he's like, yeah, he goes and laughed. He's like talking about hot dogs and all that joking. He's like, I'm outside grilling a hot dog, so I want to have a hot dog. And I was like, dude, like you don't have to, like, this isn't a thing that has to come up every time we hang out.
Yeah, this isn't a play along. I mean, you can if you want to.
You can
but
play along.
Don't look. If Steve says go eat a giraffe, you don't have to do that. All right, there,
But
you don't have to do that.
Like if somebody out there ate a giraffe and got back to us about like, do they taste tall? I would like to know these answers.
What is tall? What is that flavor? Is it like gamey except for stretched north south?
I had kangaroo. I thought it was exceptionally tender.
Huh, fascinating.
Not
well,
bouncy.
that makes sense though, because they carry around their children in their bellies, in their little pouch.
Sure.
You don't get more tender loving than that.
Oh, is that?
That's my
This
bad
one
joke.
time I had some marinated Joey.
Joey. So what was I thinking about here? Oh yeah. But I talked to and it's one of our old friends, and I talked to him, and we discussed quite a bit about the different therapies and kind of like the whole like one of the funny things that when you kind of go into these situations and people are like, oh, what medications do you have? And it's almost like, it's weird. It's almost like you're playing like cards.
Oh,
you're discussing like what medication they put you on versus what they put this person on, and how your side effects are, and if it's helping or not. And so I had those discussions and had a really fair talk about his view on therapy and how it has played into helping with addiction.
Yeah.
For him, and that it doesn't play in as much the idea that therapy is like required or even that it helps, but it's the realization that the alcohol itself is actually the self-medication, which is his form, which would have been his form, and even mine when I was, of course, when I was drinking and all that, to compensate, to like basically self therapy yourself or whatever.
Yeah, trying to regulate your mood.
It was interesting. It was interesting talking about that. I know we touched on it before in one of the other episodes. We talked about does that actually like take away the addiction? And I think that the answer is going to be, for a lot of people, and for me every time, is going to be no. And also, I don't want to tempt fate with that. Like,
yeah, right.
Like this stick of dynamite's been sitting underwater for like 5 minutes. I wonder if we can still light the fuse.
Yeah, should we pull it out of the water and then light the fuse? Wait, it's waxed? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, like, it's terrible. I just can't think of imagine doing it like that. But that was anyway. That was my thought. Was I don't want to, I don't want to stand on a branch and cut off, the branch to my right where the tree is.
Yeah.
I don't want to like saw there.
Just for the sake of like curiosity or
I wonder how heavily gravity applies right now. Well, only one way to discover that. It's like no, I really don't have to.
Maybe just drop the saw and see what happens.
Yeah, right. So there's that. For me, it's I've been in therapy as well, and I've had a lot of success with therapy. I think it's been 2 years now I've been with the same therapist, and she and I were just talking about that recently. But it's the doomsday clock, right? Like don't start it again.
Yeah.
There's no don't think that I can turn it off 2 minutes to midnight. No. Don't start it again.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's going to sit in the room for a while, but don't fucking touch it.
Yeah. I mean, so this was from an episode about a month and a half ago, somewhere in that period of time where Tiki wasn't around, and we had guest host Bo. We had a little bit of some like technical sound issues. But that's okay. That happens. But that's the episode that we're referring to. The thing that I found interesting about that whole thing was he wanted to know if the label was important, and I was like, well, at the end of the day, what do you want your relationship with alcohol to be? Because if you want to go back to drinking, then this kind of sounds a little bit like a justification for you to be able to do that, and I'm not necessarily on board with that, even though I really do believe everybody's journey is different in recovery. So I can't give you a 100% I think that you should never drink. I can give you I 100% think I should never drink. And that if I started sounding like you, the people around me should definitely look at me and say, this sounds like post hoc justification, which is not a good idea, Will. But he said that he didn't want to drink. He said his relationship with alcohol was over. He just had the kind of almost philosophical question about the nature of the label alcoholic as it referred to somebody that used it as self-medication. And then when they get the appropriate level of help and follow through with that help, does that label still apply? And I still don't know that I've got a satisfactory answer for that, but I thought it was a really good question. And he actually reached out to me about a week and a half ago, I think. And he said that he started apologizing to me because he thought that he wasn't a great guest. I thought that he brought a phenomenal question to us. And I was really, really happy about it. He said that he felt like he was underprepared for it, and all I could think was, dude, I write most of this shit like 15 minutes before I start the show. Like,
wow, yeah.
Like this is there's a lot of fly by night and me just thinking that I'm good at ad-libbing.
Yeah, do you think that Steve just suddenly wrote down one day, eat a giraffe?
Yeah, do you think he thought that he
hang
wrote
on.
that down? No.
I'm gonna hang on to that as a thought. I got a bulleted list of like weird random shit to say.
I never wrote it down, but I've thought it before. Many
Verb,
times.
Yeah, but
something noun. All right, I think we're
exactly
pretty much
fucking right. You could listen. All you got to do is change the first word on any Mad Lib books to alcoholics.
Yeah.
then just start filling shit out, because that's kind of what we do on this show.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I talked to him, it was I got the impression that it was, and I could be misconstruing what he said, but we talked a lot about therapy and the value in therapy, and whether or not, like wherein lies kind of like that comfort level with even control, maybe even the labels, as you were saying.
Yeah.
But the way that he kind of, I think the way that he kind of viewed his situation slightly different than I think you view yours. But then again, to what you just said, everyone's journey is their own.
Yeah.
We're all kind of unique in that. Like, I don't think that my journey has been. I don't know. What did I tell you the other week? And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, like, I was an alcoholic and I blew up my marriage and wound up getting divorced and moving up to Denver and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
So my stress levels are a little different than your stress levels, where you're trying to maintain your family and like trying to keep your marriage together and all of that. Like, I had a nice house in Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't have a house anymore.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's probably the biggest difference right there. I think would be in what he was saying versus what I was kind of inferring from it. Again, I could be misconstruing.
No, I thought he was a great guest, and I thought that he brought not only a good energy to the show. I really liked having him on, and I'd be happy to have him on again. Absolutely happy to have him
talking
on
with
again.
him.
Yeah, Bo's a great guy.
Yep.
He's always a great time to hang out with, sober or not. Big fan, man. Big fan. So if you listen to this later, you ain't got nothing to apologize for, like, at all. You didn't have to send that at all. I was absolutely stoked to have you on.
So that was that's my big thing for the drinky drink part.
Yep.
I simply I saw Bo, had a really great time. Actually, went and got dinner and just kind of talked over a bunch of stuff. We got to have a really good conversation about our individual relationship with alcohol and then therapy and how that's been playing out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a big advocate for therapy as part of everybody's journey. But all of our journeys are different, so.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Even if you just go a couple times just to be able to bounce thoughts and ideas off of a third party who's trained to be able to act as a neutral third party, I think that's a great thing. I haven't been able to reconnect with the therapist that I was working with, unfortunately, and more's the pity and kind of a little bit of shame on me. But yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. I was able to glean some really, really kind of deep and interesting thoughts about my own upbringing, and then talking with my little brother who's been in therapy for years and years and years. And gaining clarity through that. Like there's so much work that so many of us can do on ourselves that we don't understand that we can do until we take the plunge and start doing it. It's really kind of a weird thing where like you start seeing the work that you're doing and then recognize how much work you have to do, but it's all good. It all moves you forward. It might be painful, it might be frustrating, but it all moves you forward, and I think that's a really, really good thing. So go see a therapist if you can. Yeah. So tonight on the show, for our alcoholic topic of conversation, we spoke a little bit about this on the show on the live stream on Friday. By the way, thanks so much for joining us on that, Tiki. That was great. That was awesome for you to hop into the conversation with the community members. And like I like the three of us doing this once a week. I also really like the sort of free form kind of giving people that listen to us access to our thoughts and access to their thoughts, giving us access to their thoughts. I think that's a really, really valuable way to get not only feedback, but also, to engage with a community of alcoholics and, other addicts in a meaningful way. And that's kind of what we wanted to do here to begin with, right? It was supposed to be our version of AA, and I think that just doing the Twitch stream stuff, I think that just broadens that a little bit. So seriously, thank you so much for hopping in. That was awesome.
To that, I gotta say I really enjoy one of my things about alcoholism in general and mental health in general is having the option or the chance to bring somebody back to like kind of not a state of normalcy, but to help them feel like they're in a normal place.
Yeah.
And in gaming, that's actually a really nice, like you can just kind of go in with everybody else and you say, hey, I'm like just like all of you guys, but just like everybody else here who has those kind of problems or these kind of problems.
Yeah.
And this isn't any different for me, and shouldn't be any different for you, and we should all enjoy ourselves, and we should not have any problems enjoying ourselves. So it's a nice cycle, and I really enjoyed it. So that was great. Thanks for having me on that, by the way.
Yeah, 100%, man. You're always welcome. You're always welcome. But anyways, the topic of conversation that we had on Friday night was I was curious about if other people in the community had ever had negative experiences after or negative experiences with people that didn't understand addiction or alcoholism. And some of the feedback that I got was that there was a lot of closed-minded ignorance from either like very youthful people or people that had gotten, sort of on in age, where they could never, the way that it was framed was they couldn't understand being addicted to something because they're not addicted to any of those kinds of things that would cause like negative social or physical problems to accrue. Liver failure and damage and, encephalopathy, that kind of thing for alcoholism and, teeth rot or, heart attacks for cocaine addicts, that kind of stuff. And then all of the social kind of issues that arise from addiction as well. And it was really interesting hearing an addict say that this was a work acquaintance and they didn't know how to engage with that person about the topic of conversation. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, what do you do? What do you do with those kinds of people? that feel that way, that think that way, especially if you have to be in kind of close proximity to them, and they don't know that you're an addict. What would you do with that? What do you think, Tiki?
I don't really. It doesn't come up in casual conversation.
Right.
It just seriously doesn't. If it is brought up, then I usually, if I am joking around, I mean, like, because I still tell stories about when I used to drink, and they're ridiculous and they're funny, and I really think that some of them are absolutely like just comedy gold.
Sure.
And then, people are like, do you drink, what do you do nowadays? And I'm like, I don't drink anymore. And they're like, and you can always refer back to that previous statement of, like, why not? Well, because that thing I just said a minute ago, where clearly, like, these things, it's not my strong suit.
This was a comedy of errors. The focus being on the error part.
So, I mean, I wouldn't bring it up in general. It's not something that I really throw out there. And when it does come up, for me, I always have a prepared, like, lighthearted, easy way to kind of like, when they're like, well, you don't drink, why not? And and they'll say that, and I go, well, because I suck at it. Like, right, but it gets the giggle, it gets the laugh, and it allows it to kind of like that conversation to either taper off, or I can go into one of my other like bad stories about, hey, this one time when I was drinking, this is what I did.
Yeah.
And that's how that car caught on fire. And they're like, what? You're like, yeah, and that's why I don't drink.
Because every time I drink, my bed gets lit on fire. That's why I don't drink anymore.
Something bad happens every time. Not every time, but like, because sometimes it's comically bad, sometimes it's tragically bad.
Right.
But to that point, that's kind of how I always approach it, is to always have that. It's not like the ace of spades in my pocket or something. It's having that quick reference guide.
Yeah.
Right away, that I don't have to have like a long drawn out conversation about it. I can say something once, witty, call it good, and move on.
Oh, there's a part of me that, like, if I were to hear overhear somebody saying that kind of thing, especially if they knew me and didn't know that I was an alcoholic, it would be one of those things where, like, if they were, trashing alcoholics or trashing addicts, like, there's a cynical part of my brain that wants to go right up to them, preferably with like a juice box in my hand that I could sip while I'm listening to them, and then as soon as they stop talking, I can take my mouth off the straw of the sip box and go, I'm an alcoholic. And then just see the moment land and see what happens. Just to catch them in that, awkward faux pas of a moment.
Yeah, but I mean, you didn't win like a gold medal.
Right. And that was going to be the next point. Like, that's the cynical part of my brain that wants to gotcha somebody that is intolerant of something that I, have struggled with. Because I know how I felt about junkies when I was in my 20s before I came out, and it was very judgmental. And if somebody had done that to me, it would have shut me up really quickly. But I don't know that I would have learned from it. And that's the whole thing, is trying to get people to understand and empathize with something that they may not understand and may never really understand. Because, like, we've had conversations about, how do you talk to somebody about what addiction feels like? You really kind of can't. Like, the best that I've ever been able to do was to tell somebody that drank a little, they would have like a half a glass of wine. Do you like that buzzed feeling? Yeah, I think that can be pleasant and relaxing. Okay, well, I like the buzzed feeling, and then I like the super buzzed feeling, and then I like the drunk feeling, and then I stopped liking it right about the time that the room is spinning, but I'm not a quitter, so full steam ahead.
Yeah, I was always when I got that bloated feeling, that was like the worst. I was like, oh no, now I feel like I gotta take a shit, but I can't take a shit.
Yeah.
Because this is just going to explode out of me later anyway. But, like, now it's all the pressure is built up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just
that image is. You're welcome, America.
I was just thinking of another way that I could approach it from now on. Whenever somebody's like, oh, you don't drink, why is that? And I'll go, oh, I'm in a cult. And the cult leader, we don't partake.
We partake neither in the fermentation of grape nor of barley.
I was just saying I'm a Scientologist or something. I don't know. I gotta come up with a new one. just to like make people really uncomfortable. That'd be
Yeah.
like even like if you wanted to, like, don't come up with your sippy box or your juice box and your straw.
I just love the idea of
I'm a
of-
Scientologist
of,
and I don't drink.
like a lot of
And it
eye
just-
contact while I'm sipping on a Capri Sun.
Finish the package so it's all like compressed and you're like.
You blow it back up.
And then blow it in their face. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I it was just a question that I didn't have a really great answer for. I imagine that in the instance, I'm in my 40s. I am, reasonably good with human beings. I could say, hey, listen, in a non-confrontational way, look, I'm an alcoholic. What you said was kind of insensitive. I'm okay, but I want you to know that there's probably an addict in your life somewhere. And I want you to think about how you would feel if they came to you and said, hey, I'm really struggling with this. What you said hurt me a lot. Could you please not do that anymore? I want you to think about that. Then I want you to think about, what if you were an addict and you heard somebody else saying that about your condition and how you would feel about
Yeah.
it? So just a little bit of empathy, I think, would go a long way, and in a non-confrontational way, because confrontation, I think, sometimes can be very powerful and really important. But I think that when you're trying to educate somebody, all it's going to do is raise defenses, and that's not a way forward in any kind of real discourse, I think. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking the cult idea is probably.
Well, plus you might be able to get them into the cult too, and then
Yeah.
you get to make up a cult, which I think that's on most of our
Maybe-
bucket lists, right?
I wanted to be a cult leader. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a great
yeah.
get rich quick scheme. You
Yeah.
just have
Oh.
everybody give you all their
Checked
stuff.
it off mine already.
Did you? Jealous.
Jealous. So, anyways, that's what I got for tonight's alcohol-related topic. Do you have any further thoughts, fellas?
No.
Fantastic.
Let's talk about gaming.
Yeah. So this week in gaming, so this doesn't apply as much to Tiki, unfortunately, but Steve and I have been playing Warmachine and Hordes in some way, shape, or form now for me since 2009. Steve, you bought in sometime in 2015?
Sure. I don't know.
2015,
know when I started
2016,
playing,
somewhere
but I
in
started
there?
playing at some point.
Well, I mean, I think I got you your first box of models, right?
I think so.
Is that correct? Yeah.
And I was like, you son of a bitch.
You've done it. You've
I'm in.
Done it to me. I'm in. Look at their little dragon heads. I love them. Well, because of a myriad of different factors, multivariate factors, as my wife would appreciate me saying, Privateer Press, the company that made this game, and this game is wonderful. Definitely my favorite of all the miniature games that I have, and I have quite a collection of different miniature games. This game has gone through a couple of iterations, and it's gone through ups and downs in its sales record. Now, this is a small company based out of Seattle, Washington, that does not have the global pull that a game like Warhammer 40K or Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar have, where Games Workshop is the dominant miniature game. It's the Magic the Gathering of games. It's Apple of tabletop games. It's massive. It has so many intellectual property rights produced video games of their tabletop game format that there are at least 50 that are absolute garbage, and there's still 5 or 6 that are easily in my top 10 games of all time. That's how prolific this other company is. So when the subject of playing Warmachine and Hordes came up just recently, when somebody was asking me, is this something that you'd ever play again? I would hem and haw about it like I'd want to, but the game had been created on this timeline where there were model releases on an almost yearly basis that continued to bloat and bloat and bloat the size, structure, and power levels of the game. And that makes that very, very untenable in terms of trying to balance out factions. Well, they just recently announced Mark IV, which is the 4th edition of Warmachine and Hordes. And with that, they have released details about what they're going to do with the rules and what they're going to do with their back catalog of models. Now, like I just said, there's a ton of models. That makes it difficult to balance. So one of the things that I found so fascinating about playing Magic the Gathering with Steve was Wizard of the Coast recognized that in order to create profit over a long period of time, they had to have a game system that was going to allow them to phase out old cards and introduce new ones. However, that left a gigantic back catalog of cards that were made obsolete, but were still parts of people's collections, just like what's going to be happening with the Mark IV beta coming up for Warmachine and Hordes. They are taking all of the old models, which will get updated rule sets, but because the game is so geared towards a competitive mindset, the only models that will be allowed moving forward for the competitive portion of the game will be part of a format called Prime, and that'll be a smaller number that will be actively worked on to balance against other models in the Prime range, where all of the other models that are not part of the Prime range will be put into a category called Legacy or Unlimited, where there will still be rules, they still exist for the game. However, if you want to play competitively, they won't be a part of that game. Now, this has caused a fair amount of frustration amongst a lot of the community that I'm seeing online. And while I recognize that we want all of our little tiny toys that we spent so much time, effort, and money on to remain solvent deep into the future, there's just no way that you can, A, continue to produce all of those models when you need new models made for the generation of gamers that have already bought into the system. The other thing that they're doing is they're taking the entirety of the rule set and simplifying it down to make gameplay more approachable by new players, because that's one of the biggest problems with Warmachine and Hordes is the barrier to entry is this incredibly high skill ceiling game that one of the things that we say to new players is you're going to lose the first 100 games of this game that you play. Can you imagine being told that after being asked to shell out $100 to $300 for something that you're going to lose constantly? Like, Steve, you're one of the only people that I've ever met that was like, you know what, I'm going to lose a lot, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's just because I'm okay with losing. But that goes back to, I mean, a conversation we had on the podcast a while back, right? Remember when I said trying to get new players in, one of the things that I think you have to do is kind of let them win.
Right.
Right. And so I can see how that's very difficult with the way the game won't be.
So the rules that they're implementing,
transitioning,
they're doing so much to simplify things.
I just meant like in the specific, like right.
Oh, in right now,
talking.
yeah, the Mark III, the Mark III rule set is less convoluted than Mark II was, but still, if you're going to play a miniature game, this is not.
Yeah, it's such a complex thing to get into.
It's like this is checkers to chess.
Yeah.
In terms of its complexity, it's huge. It's a gigantic wall of text to start discerning the rule system for Mark III. And the stuff that they're doing for for Mark IV looks like it's going to make gameplay faster, more intuitive. So many of the little fiddly interactions are being pared down. I mean, I could go through a big gigantic list of all of these changes,
you can even just do like a quick one.
I mean, wow.
I mean, some of the relevant, I think,
So the big ones that I like are so facing was a big part of the previous rules. And they're doing away completely with facing. So if your model is in a spot, you don't need to sit there and agonize over turning the model millimeters of a degree at a time, left or right, to make sure that they're facing exactly correct. They've removed a system of attacks for when you move past an enemy model. That doesn't exist anymore. So the amount of haranguing the mental haranguing that you have to go through trying to get your models into position to do the things that you want to do with them is much less. Each one of the units will be smaller in composition. I think most units previously were 6 to 10 models with an optional 2 to 3. Now I think it's going to be 5 plus 2 and then 3 plus 2. I think that those are going to be the maximum unit sizes. The AoE attacks, the spray attacks are all being changed to be much more streamlined. Each one of the warjacks and war beasts, the kind of the big figurehead models, each one of them is going to be customizable between games. So the models will be magnetizable out of the box. They're going to have them so that you can magnetize them and you get access to all the stuff that comes with that model, which is an absolutely fantastic feature. I think it's something that is sorely lacking in in years past. If you wanted to make one model, you bought a kit that would allow you to make 3 different models. Well, now you buy one kit, you can build all 3 of those different models, provided you have the skill to magnetize them. Real simple. It's a really early skill that you pick up while you're creating.
And I thought I read that they're doing things to make that even the models are going to come with the little pits for the magnets a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah, they were right. They're designed to be magnetized better, so it's just an easier prospect to get into.
Yeah, 100% easier. They're introducing 2 new mechanics specifically for the use of abilities in game. One is previously each one of the central characters, the warcasters, came with a list of spells that was locked in to that character. Now you will have spells that are specific to a character, but then you'll have a couple of additional spells that you can draw from a roster from your army, from your faction. So, if I'm playing Signar, they'll have a catalog of spells that I can draw from. They'll also have a catalog of warcasters that each have a couple of spells that are signature to them, which is really cool, and gives a little bit more customizability to your force. Command cards are a new mechanic that they're adding in, which will be one-use only abilities that you can use on your turn. I'm not sure if they're including things that interrupt the other player's turn, which is great. They're adding on different methods of winning a game. It used to be you either scored points to win a game or you assassinated the other force's warcaster. That's being changed in a really kind of a novel and interesting way. There's so much that they're doing in terms of streamlining statistics, in streamlining the movement. It used to be that you had to move every single model individually. Now, if you have a group of models, you move one model from that, and then you move all of the other ones to be within 2 inches of that primary model. So you're not sitting there with a tape measure on each one of the models trying to make sure that they all go to, a specific range. It's move one, move the rest in a blob, boop, all done. So that should speed things up, hopefully.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was reading is that their intent is to speed up the game.
Yep.
Like most of these rules are to, as you said earlier, make it easier to get into it and to just speed it up. Like they did take a long time. There's a lot of fiddly bits, like you said.
Now the backlash that's coming that I'm seeing all has to do with the idea that, one, you're invalidating model purchases. Well, you know what? Your car is going to run out of being a car eventually. It's going to break down. It's going to bust out. Do you think that car companies should make one car and that's the last car that they ever make? No, absolutely not. Every year they come out with a new car. Magic the Gathering. Every 6 months they phase out old cards.
Every 3 months.
Or every 3 months? Fuck, it's even faster than that? Jesus.
I don't know. It's ridiculous at this point. I've kind of lost track, to be honest.
Well, I recognize that buying a couple of individual cards might not be the same economic outlay as buying an army. But if I buy an army for $200, which is what the army starter sets for Mark IV Warmachine are going to be, that'll still last me probably until at least the next edition of the game. And then if it's introduced to the legacy system, which still means that it's allowable to be played in certain formats, there's your longevity while still keeping a competitive section of the game alive and viable without overly taxing the game company to try to balance things in a way that would make it so that they cannot release new models for fear of creating overpowered combinations.
So I saw that comparison too online, and to Magic, and complaining that at least in Magic, how did it read? Somebody said something to the effect of, you buy the cards and you bought the card and that's it. And so the investment was that little bit. And they were basically complaining about the modeling aspect, that you put so much more time into these models, which I think is kind of bullshit.
I do too.
Like, that's part of what that's part of the game, right? That's part of why you're doing this, because otherwise you would just play Magic. You would just play another game where you didn't have to do that part. So I think I thought it was kind of a disingenuous argument to make, because you're telling me you don't want to build more models? You don't want to do that? Like, go play a different game.
You're telling me that you want to buy pre-painted models?
Go play a different game.
Because they exist.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Go do a different game.
and to be perfectly honest,
I don't know if that's a thing anymore.
They're a lot of fun. Star Wars Armada is a great game.
Yeah.
X-Wing is a great game. Guess what? Those are pre-painted models. You know what happened with them? A second edition. That changed the fucking rules.
Yeah,
that
so
may have invalidated your stuff.
That was a weak argument. I was like, all right, well, that's stupid. That's a dumb thing.
It is a weak argument. There's one guy that I know personally that posted literally this sort of, well, I can't believe that they're invalidating my purchase, and I'm like,
oh no,
how are they supposed to continue to make money if they can't get people into the game in a meaningful way, B, continue to sell new models, because every single time they release a new model, the complaint is always, well, this is power bloat, this is power bloat. Well, the way that you fix power bloat is by allowing those models to still be played in limited formats, but pushing the competitive scene, which drives almost all of the sales of these models.
So that was actually another. And I'll give credit here to this one Reddit post by user Iced Yehudi. I think I'm saying that right.
Iced Yehudi.
Yehudi? I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, you got to go up at the end. Yehudi.
Sometimes after my wife and I spend some time together, she has to ice her hootie.
So that particular Reddit user has this whole thing, like, post about why Mark IV is so polarizing. Basically, his premise is that it's the reason that a lot of people don't like it is the competitive community who's having issues with this, because they have all these strategies, they have all these things worked out, and that's the issue, right? The rules are changing, and that's the problem. They're getting simpler, and the competitive community likes the more complex.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've read that too.
Yeah. Well, so I understand where this person's coming from to a point. However, here's where I find the flaw in that logic. First, and this is the first and foremost thing, competitive players are always going to find the exploits, no matter what.
Always.
So it doesn't matter that the rules are changing. Competitive players are going to be competitive players. They're going to take these new rules and they're going to break them, just like they did the old rules.
Yeah.
Just like when they learned how to target their own creatures to, hit your opponent's creatures with AOE kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's always going to be those competitive players who learn how to do that. As far as the, caring about the rule simplification, they'll get used to it. Everybody does, right?
Yeah,
Like, whether or not you like it or not, and this is what I thought was kind of amusing too, whether or not you like them or not, this is where the game's going. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
For good or for bad, they're doing it. This is what the rules are. You're either going to buy the new models or you're not. And I suspect that most of the people will. I think you have the people online who are saying, "Oh, I'm out of the game now." Maybe a few of them, but I think most of them will if it's a game that you play, you're still going to play it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. The new starter armies come out in October, and I'm already saving up to see what would be interesting to purchase.
Yeah, I'm real excited to.
Because I want. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to go with what you said. I'm excited to play with the new stuff.
Yeah, and I'm excited. The few times that I've dipped my toe in the competitive scene, I've had a really, really good time. I've never, ever encountered any kind of negativity from the competitive players in person. They've all been patient while I was learning. They've all been an absolute joy to play with. They were just excited to be getting games in, even if they fuck stomped me into next week.
Exactly, and that's kind of crap too, because at the end of the day, that's, even in this guy's thread, it's what it kind of sounds like what competitive players like to do, and I think that's crap. So that's another reason I like the new rules, is because I think it opens up a way to get into this game easier. For me, I was always really intimidated about going to oh my god, what is it called? What are you inviting me to every Friday?
Warfare Weekend.
Thank you. I was always intimidated by that because it's like, man, I don't know how to play this at a competitive level. I'm going to make terrible mistakes, and I'm going to bog down the game. Even just playing with you, I always kind of bog down the game, because I didn't understand necessarily each and every rule all that well, or
that's just reps, right? That's just getting the reps.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
You're not wrong, but I think that by streamlining some of these things, it's going to be a lot.
I would agree.
More accessible.
I would agree. No, I don't think it's going to lose most of the core flavor. I think that it's going to I think there's going to be a lot more big stompy robots that are going to be a lot of fun to smash into each other. I think that there's so much rule blow. Like, I can't think of any time that I ever used a weapon lock in Mark II, and that was a rule in Mark II. Like, as long as they don't get rid of things like throws and slams and being able to toss models around the board, which I wouldn't think that they will.
Sounded like, from what I read, that's still in there. It's just a little weaker.
Yeah, and sometimes those things need to be tuned down a little bit, and that's okay. This is a very active game company. Their presence at every single, like, I'm looking forward to seeing my friend Doug Hamilton at Warfare Weekend. He's one of the lead designers of the models. Looking forward to seeing him. It's going to be great. I see him at every single convention that I get to. And we always hang out. It's always a fun friggin' time. I love that about this company. It's one of the things that I love the most about this company. That's one of the reasons that I decided that they were going to be a product that I backed almost just for the sake of backing the product. Because it was the kind of company that I wanted to see succeed. One that had a presence at the conventions. That, if there was a Privateer Press member in the area, they'd show up to the local game store and they would talk geek with you, and that was awesome. You can't touch the castle. You can't go to Games Workshop and go talk to the lead designer. You can't just walk in off the street for that kind of thing. Absolutely not. That's not happening. Not in my experience, at least. I could be wrong. Somebody, send me the correction on that with you and a picture of the lead designer of Warhammer 40K, and I will shut my trap on that one. So, anyways, I'm looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to Warfare Weekend in October or in November. I think it's going to be great. So, you guys got anything else for tonight, Steve?
Nope, that was mostly it. As janky as it was, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. That's fine. It's all editable. Tiki, all right there, buddy?
Yeah. Just trying not to fall asleep.
Gotcha. Sorry.
We did it to our co-host and probably to our listeners.
Probably to our listeners too. But
Yep.
You know what? That's okay. That's all right. The first part of the show was an absolute barn burner, my friends. All right. Just like every episode of the Save versus Poison podcast, we like to shout out to the mutual support groups that we hope you turn to in your time of need. Mutual support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, AA.org, 212-870-3400, Moderation Management, moderation.org, 212-871-0974, Secular AASOS, sobriety.org, 323-693-1633, Smart Recovery, smartrecovery.org, 440-951-5357, Women for Sobriety, womenforsobriety.org, 215-536-8026, and for those friends and family of an addict that need a little support in a group-type environment, there are Al-Anon family groups. That's www.al-anon.alateen.org or 1-888-425-2666. From all of us here at the Save vs. Poison podcast, I'm Will.
I'm Tiki.
I'm Steve.
And we wish you all warm, creamy regards. Good night, everybody. You've just listened to another episode of the Save vs. Poison podcast. If you liked what you heard, please follow us, like, and subscribe on Twitter at @VS_save, on Facebook at the Save vs. Poison podcast, and streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/SVP podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and stay safe, everyone.